The hospital wing never truly slept, though the castle's corridors did. Tonight, as I crossed the polished stone toward the ward, the flickering candlelight threw long, trembling shadows across the walls. Pomfrey had warned staff of a minor catastrophe, though the use of that word in her typically clinical fashion could scarcely provide one with enough context to know the details. It was a Slytherin student laying on the bed with the sort of precision one might afford a rare ingredient, as if placing her carefully could somehow restore her. A 7th year, ambitious beyond all reason. Her experiments, careful manipulations of a draft of Living Death variant, had gone catastrophically wrong, and I silently cursed Pomfrey for not alerting me sooner. I had witnessed similar miscalculations countless times, yet something about this girl's reckless brilliance was different. Her eyes, still half-lidded with shock, betrayed a hunger for mastery that had not been dimmed by the acrid tang of scorched potion residue still lingering in her hair. She had dreams of becoming an expert potioneer, not unlike my younger self, and her cunning and ambition seemed to carry her closer and closer to her goal. That reckless pursuit, once admirable, now lay coiled, limp and soft beneath the hospital sheets, tangled with fear and unconscious pain. And yet as I stood beside her, I felt it clearly. Even here, even broken and battered, she would not yield. "Do you remember the formula you were attempting?" I asked, my voice low, measured. She shifted slightly but made no sound. I could not tell if the silence was sleep or something deeper, an absence of comprehension. Her lips moved as if to speak, but no words emerged. A curious thing. Too curious. Then from the corner of my vision, a movement caught me. A figure seated in a shadowed corner. A grown woman, dark hair, pale and impossibly still. When I turned fully, the figure vanished. My heart quickened, though I was wise enough to recognize a strange shadow from a mirage. Yet, something is wrong about it all. Something familiar. I returned the next evening. The ward was quiet, though I could hear the soft drip of a potion from the corner basin, a sound that had grown oddly soothing in my mind. The student still lay on the bed, unnervingly still, her breathing shallow, measured but awake. She sat up upon my arrival. She was small, shrunken, eyes too knowing for her apparent age. She looked up at me as I entered, tilting her head ever so slightly. Her voice was calm, too calm, carrying a certainty that could make a lesser man's skin crawl.
"You came back."
"I did," I replied. Her eyes found mine.
"She said you'd come."
"Who?" I demanded, though my voice betrayed a tension I did not intend to show. The girl smiled faintly, a motion that seemed almost too deliberate.
"The woman. She said she knows you. She said she forgives you, and you should forgive yourself."
The candle guttered. The shadows stretched unnaturally across the ward, and I caught a glimpse in the polished stone floor, her reflection, and behind it, another figure. A woman, tall, dark-haired, serene. Her gaze was fixed on me, piercing, unyielding. I turned sharply. The ward was empty. No woman. Only the student, pale and still, breathing quietly as though nothing had happened. I swallowed. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The following night, I found myself walking the familiar silent corridors once more. The echo of my own boots loud in the empty castle. Rain fell in fat, lazy drops outside the hospital wing windows, saturating the grounds. Puddles shimmered in the moonlight. The air inside smelled faintly of antiseptic, parchment, and something else. Faintly metallic, like blood, though I knew it couldn't be. The student was no longer in bed. She stood small and pale at the edge of the window, watching the rain swirl and settle over the ground. Her hair clung damply to her face, and yet she did not shiver. She spoke, without turning.
She'll come tonight. She said you would know her when you saw her.
Her voice was calm yet measured in a way that made me uneasy. I hesitated, feeling the old compulsions of rationality straining against an instinct I could not name. I know no woman here, I said carefully. You are imagining things. A ghost from some long-forgotten corner of the castle, perhaps, one I have long since dismissed. The girl's small frame did not move.
No. She remembers you.
Her words were soft, almost sorrowful. I could feel the blood drain from my face. The shadows flickered at the corners of the room, and the rain outside continued cascading down the glass in an unnatural way. I took a cautious step forward, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Yet as I approached, the reflection in the window shifted ever so slightly, showing not her but a figure behind her. Tall, dark-haired, features impossibly familiar. I blinked. The reflection lingered too long, and then it was gone. I tried to steady my mind. A ghost, yes. Perhaps a memory. Perhaps something from the past I had buried deep. Logic dictated I dismiss it. And yet the unease in my chest told me that reason had no way to explain what I was witnessing. The girl turned finally, and I caught the faintest curve of a smile, sly and impossibly knowing.
She waits.
I left the room with a measured bow of my head, though my mind reeled. Something, someone, was here, and I did not yet understand why. I returned once more, driven by some mixture of duty, curiosity, and something else I could not name. The hospital wing was empty, or so it seemed. The ward was silent, the beds neatly made, the flickering candlelight dancing across spotless floors. Everything was as it should be, including my student. She sat at the foot of the first bed, small and dark-haired, her eyes fixed on me. The air in the room was heavy, thick with unseen fog.
She is here. She wants to speak to you.
I see no one, I replied, striving for composure. My voice sounded stranger to me than I would have imagined, echoing faintly in the cavernous room. Perhaps this visitor is only your imagination. She shook her head, a small, deliberate motion.
No. She remembers you. She waited all this time.
I moved toward the bed. As I did, the ward seemed to shift. Shadows pooled unnaturally, corners stretched, and the reflection in the mirror above the far bed caught my eye. At first it was only my own tired face, lined and pale. Then another figure appeared behind me. A woman, her dark hair falling in familiar waves, her eyes piercing, impossibly alive. Taller now, fully formed, impossibly solid. My mother, Eileen Prince. My breath caught in my throat. I had thought I had buried this grief decades ago, hidden it beneath duty, anger, and shadowed memory. And yet here she was, waiting.
You never came back for me.
Her words were not accusatory, only mournful.
You could not forgive yourself, and so I waited. I forgive you, Severus.
I opened my mouth, but no sound emerged. She reached for me, fingers pale as candlelight, but before they touched, the ward fell silent. The candle guttered and went out. My wand was in my hand. I immediately cast the Lumos charm and spun. The room was empty. The beds were immaculate. Not a trace of the apparition remained. Where is she? I whispered, my heart racing. A cold unease settled in my chest. Every night, every whispered word, every echo in the mirrors had been for me alone. The student, the accident, the ward. Perhaps none of it existed outside my own mind. I closed my eyes and drew a slow, measured breath. When I opened them again, I was in my chambers. Curtains drawn, the candlelight low and steady, the quiet absolute. I could not tell if I had slept or wandered, if the hospital wing had been emptied by magic or imagination. Only the lingering sense of her presence remained, just beyond reach, just beyond understanding. At dawn, I made my way to the hospital wing. I told myself it was merely to satisfy curiosity, or to reassure myself that the world had not bent in some inexplicable way. Pomfrey bent over her desk, quill scratching against parchment. She looked up, startled by my sudden appearance, and I realized that the line between what I had seen and what awaited me here remained stubbornly blurred.
"You're up early. Is something the matter?"
I hesitated, searching for words that might make sense of what I had experienced. "The Slytherin student," I began cautiously. "The one who—" I stopped, aware of how absurd it must sound. "The accident. The draft of living death experiment gone wrong." Pomfrey blinked, frowning, her brow knitting.
"Accident? There have been no students here. None have been in the ward for weeks."
I looked past her toward the row of beds gleaming in the pale morning light. Crisp, empty, untouched. The ward smelled only of polish and sunlight, and yet a faint echo of something else, something I could not name, clung to the air. "Perhaps," I said slowly, my voice quieter than I intended. "Perhaps I was mistaken." Pomfrey regarded me steadily, concern never leaving her face.
"You look tired, Severus. Perhaps you should rest."
I nodded, but did not move immediately. My eyes lingered on the empty beds, on the polished floor, on the mirrors reflecting nothing, and yet somehow the memory of her presence. Even in the light of morning, the certainty eluded me. Was it imagination? Memory? Some residual magic? Or had I glimpsed something real waiting just beyond the veil, patient, watchful, and impossible to forget? I turned and left the ward, the unease settling in my chest like a living thing pressing against reason. And though the castle was bright with dawn, I knew some presences cannot be summoned or banished. They wait, they watch, and they remember everything you try to forget.